Hey everybody! In today's video, I will be showing you a very simple wet on wet watercolor technique with Karin Markers on watercolor paper. It's using this phenomenal new Bird of Paradise stamp that is being released today. I've been obsessed with these since childhood. Even one time when we took a road trip to Mexico when I was little, my mom bought me this fun Bird of Paradise themed piece of folk art because I've always loved these flowers. I've stamped this on Fabriano cold press watercolor paper, and I'm going to be just adding clear water to these petals and then adding the marker directly. And this is just a different way to use your Karin markers than in the past, where I've scribbled on my craft mat and then painted and blended with that. So I'll show you the difference between what these two methods look like. Now, if I pick up the ink off of the craft mat and put it into the wet area of the cardstock, you can see what a beautiful pale color I get. There's a big difference in intensity, both because the paper is already wet and I'm using a wet paintbrush, than there is if you color directly into the wet watercolor paper with the marker, as you'll see. So I've added a little bit of more intense orange in the center. And now I'm coming in with this sort of coral color at the edge. And what's great about working on wet watercolor paper is you'll see how it just blends out into the wet part of the petal, and I don't have to do any additional blending. I love, love, love this technique. It's so much fun. So I'm correcting. I went a little bit outside with the water, so of course the ink was drawn there, but as long as this is wet, you can blot it just like you can with watercolor. Now I do want to skip a petal and leave some dry space in between so that the two don't bleed together. And here I'm just putting a little bit of water again and then going directly with the marker, and you can see right away how much more intense that is, but it gives you a blend with no effort at all. Now the way a Bird of Paradise is colored is it always has a few petals that are shocking different color, and so I sort of pick those out in advance, which I would want to be different from the rest of the flower, which is going to be in this beautiful neon orange with the little coral blended in at the edge for dimension. And I took a picture of this, which you will be able to see on my blog, and I used a Googly Eye app to stick an eye on the bird and send it to my friend Nicole because I thought it was just crying out for a googly eye. But the flower by itself is too beautiful for me to really stick a googly eye on it, but maybe on another card. Now I'm doing the same thing on the stem. I'm using a turquoise and a green marker over wet watercolor paper to do, I just call it self-blending because it really does all the work for you. You don't need to sit there and blend and get it all perfect. Now I'm using this nice bright violet for my showy little petals, and I'm dropping in the fluorescent orange, and you can see how it pushes the violet back, and you can really see those spots very distinctly. That's one of the fun things about working with water-based mediums. They just do what they want. And I love how those two push away from each other. Now the bottom section is going to be turquoise and this fluorescent pink. And I'll just help that blend into a paler purple to coordinate with the top. And again, touch the marker to the wet paper to make little dots of color in the turquoise. And this is such a showy image. I thought it would be fun to do some splatters in the background. So I have the Golden Rose paper glaze, and I'm just using a paintbrush to put that onto my craft mat. Always put the lid back on. This is a fast drying medium, which is great, but you don't want to dry out your jar. And I do a little trick with my grid pad that is called lifting up one sheet, and then you have a perfectly appropriate little splatter box, and you don't have to go get a cardboard box or use anything else. You can splatter and it won't get your desk messy. So I'm adding a little bit of water to the paper glaze just to make it splatter a bit easier. And I can just tap on my paintbrush to add some little gold splatters all over this image. This is so much fun. And there's something so freeing about just splattering an image instead of like working really hard to make it precise like we all want to do. It's very freeing. So this technically makes it a mixed media card because I am using 2 or more mediums. But I want to do Lori's fun trick with the Karin markers because they are great for splattering too. So you just want to clean your paintbrush really well before you do this, or just use a water brush, it doesn't matter. But these are so inky that they are great splattering mediums. All you do is tap a wet brush against the end of the marker and ink will fly off and cover your project. So I'll do this in several colors, and it is such a great way to use these markers. It doesn't hurt the markers at all. It's sort of like when you're blending from the tip of a marker or scribbling on your craft mat. All you're doing is taking a little bit of ink off of the end of the marker and adding a little bit of water, which is the companion for these markers anyway, so it's fine. Don't worry about that. I'll add a few more colors. I really got bigger splatters with the blue. Those look great. And I'm just rinsing my brush in between so that I'm not transferring one color to another. If you do transfer one color to another marker, also don't worry about that because you can just scribble on a piece of paper and it'll be back to its original color in no time. That's what makes these so fun to work with. Now you can see as this dries, which is different from traditional watercolor, that it does not lose any intensity. It stays just as vivid as when you colored it. Now I'm using my favorite, the neon orange. I absolutely love this color. All of the neons are great. I bought the neons in a set, but you can also buy them individually. And I do have a coupon code on my blog post for 15% off anything they sell. So if you're interested in the Karin markers, definitely get your discount. So I'll put my mat back down and then show you what this looks like up close. Now, after I finished filming this, you can see the shimmer on the paper glaze, really fun, and all the different colors. I went back and added some dots directly with the marker here and there, all over the background, just to have bigger pops of color where I wanted them. So head over to my blog today for more products released today, a coupon code, and a funny story. Thanks so much for watching.